For our second virtual tasting. My name is Rebecca Nelson. I'm the wine club director here at Becker Vineyards. We've got a lot of great guests on our panel tonight. So we are trying the 2018 Provencal. So if you've got your pink wine in your glass from the packet, you're on the right track. I'm gonna introduce I'm going to introduce Joe Becker, Dr. Joseph Becker. Sorry, Joe. And he's the youngest of the Becker boys. And he's going to be joining us tonight. Not to be outdone, you'll see he's got his straw. So we've got that going again. I'm going to turn it over to Joe now. I really hope everybody enjoys the wine and enjoys the discussion. Cheers, everybody.
Hello. First off, my name is Joe Becker. And the winery has been part of my life since I can remember, since I was probably in the 6th grade when my parents first bought the property, and my mother and I planted some of the very first grapes in our back vineyard. And from high school, middle school, college, working at the winery was a summer job for me, and it has been a lucky experience. I love science. I love art. I love that about winemaking. Working in the vineyard in the summer, it was sort of like taking a course in biochemistry with all of the hard work that you do. And so when I came back, I'm a physician. My father and I practiced medicine together. And when I came back 10 years ago, I got to be involved in our managerial side of the winery, and I have loved every minute of it. I miss my mother dearly. We drove up to the winery with my father every Saturday for almost 10 years. So the winery is an important part of my life. Now, you may be wondering what the heck is in front of me. So I'm also a father. So the first part of the day, I was seeing patients in my medical practice with my father. The first part of the day, I was seeing patients in my medical practice with my father. The second part of the day, I was also having to be a teacher to my little boys. And so I decided today that I would, as part of their art project, I would do something wine related. So my 8-year-old, he and I built an umbrella. Now we made it's very inexpensive. It's made from a coffee filter and a straw. And as he pointed out, it allows you to also enjoy the umbrella and drink from it. I love wine in a straw. My 5-year-old, he and I built these straws that go together. And I prefer to have 2 in the bottle, especially after a day like today. And I can tell you it works very well. So if you're a parent out there, I highly recommend these art projects. We're excited to talk about our Provencal today. I think one of the things that I would point out is the blend, the Mourvèdre, the Counoise, the Carignan. We were probably one of the first vineyards to plant Mourvèdre in Texas. Mourvèdre is a red Rhone varietal. We initially planted Viognier, which is a white Rhone varietal, because we felt that our part of Texas has a very similar climate to that of the southern Rhone. And so we were experimenting with planting these Rhone varietals. Our Viognier is obviously done very well. It's won awards all over the world. And we think that we grow excellent Rhone varietals here in Texas. Mourvèdre, Carignan, Grenache, Syrah, these are some of the ones you'll hear about. But I think at this point, I'm gonna turn it over to the man that has really put all these varietals together. Our excellent winemaker, Jon Leahy, who has an incredible winemaking pedigree, including working with Heidi Barrett. So Jon, I will turn it over to you.
All right, Joe, thanks for the introduction and welcome. And I'm glad to know that your sense of humor is following in line with Mondays. So cheers.
I can't be outdone by my father.
Yeah, no doubt. Exactly. So one of the things I wanted to touch on real briefly is we are also going to be joined tonight by the Farmhouse Vineyard crew. The crew includes the Seatons and the Fergusons. It'd be Nick and Katie Jane Seaton and Tracy and Anthony Ferguson. So welcome, guys, to our show tonight. These are one of the crews that are responsible for putting these beautiful varietals together for us in the vineyard and shipping us these absolute gems when they come into the winery, the grapes. And it is a joy to be able to deal with such excellent fruit. Before I get actually into the wine, guys, I want you all to, one, just go around and real briefly introduce yourselves so everybody knows who you are. And then two, just tell us a little bit about the challenges of growing grapes up on the High Plains.
Hi, guys. Hi, John. Hi, Joe. I'm Katie Jane
Hey,
Seaton.
guys, how's it going?
Hi. Good. All I did is work for you at one point and marry into this amazing family who planted the grapes over a decade ago. So
I'm Nick Seaton, and I am part of the Farmhouse crew. We planted 112 acres of, or we have 112 acres of grapes planted, and my sister and brother-in-law is Tracy, or excuse me, I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hey guys, I'm Anthony Ferguson. Honored to be here, honored to be live with you guys and, get to talk about, this thing that we love to grow, wine and grapes. It certainly is an honor. So.
Hi, Tracy Ferguson.
Hey, may I interrupt you, Tracy? Just for a second, I'm going to interrupt you.
It's homeschooling.
So, Tracy, I want to put you on the hot spot since you thought you were going to get out of public speaking this year at Twiga. So now join us with the 100,000 people who are watching us currently. So.
Well, I hope you have 100,000 people that are drinking lovely Texas wine.
Well, I do appreciate you guys taking the time out of the day for and joining us. I know it is a busy time in spring planting and vineyard maintenance. So one of the things I want to cut right to the chase with the varietals that we get from you, especially some of the Rhone varietals that most people may not be aware of, like the Counois and the Cinsault. If you could talk about why did you guys choose to plant some of those varietals?
Well, like Joe said, the Rhone varietals are what we're looking for when we started planting, and Becker is so well known in the Texas industry, and we were first and foremost trying to find the varietals that would fit their portfolio and the ones that we thought would grow in our area the best, and also what was recommended to us by the guys from the nurseries, and that we felt like that the Counois would work great for a blending grape to bring a lot of fruit forwardness to the Texas industry. And the Cinsault is one that we feel like is an awesome growing grape. I feel like the future of the Cinsault is just awesome. And I will let Anthony.
Yeah. So one of the reasons that we decided to plant the Rhone varietals was varieties that we thought could handle the heat. You talked about what are some of the challenges that we deal with growing on the High Plains. Well, there's a lot of challenges, right? I mean, it can be very violent at times with our weather, very turbulent. We've had an amazing spring so far, probably one of the best Marches other than, weather-wise for us that me and Nick were talking about this other day, that to get the amount of rain that we've had and the pleasantness has just been amazing. So that's been awesome. But typically, from the very severe hailstorms that we can encounter, the freezing temperatures, whether it's in the spring or in the late fall, is something that is always in the back of our minds. But for me, probably the biggest challenge from producing a high quality grape is you've got to give it time for the phenolicness to fully develop, right? And so you can pretty much put it on on your watch. You can set a timer that sometime in September we're going to get a low pressure that comes off the Baja up across us, and it's going to cause issues during harvest with rain or whatever. And so that chess game of do we wait, do we pick, that gut instinct decisions. And luckily we have you guys to help make those decisions and kind of balance that risk is such a, that really benefits us. I think it benefits y'all. But that to me is just that's probably the biggest challenge is,
right.
That deciding when to harvest, kind of that gamble. Do we pick, do we not pick? And 2017 was a year that was kind of strange. I mean, Hurricane Harvey's demise in Houston was our benefit on the High Plains. That massive storm put a massive high pressure on us and enabled us to not have a low pressure. There was one coming our way, and it never showed up. So,
sure.
But that's something that's that you're always, or at least I'm always thinking about. Is that in the harvest.
Well, it's a great segue to talk about that because in the 2018 harvest, which the 2018 Provencal. So everybody at home, if you have this bottle and you have it open, you've got the right wine, first of all. So that's so cheers to that. So the 2018 harvest, though wasn't as long, it offered its own unique challenges. The fruit from your vineyard, guys, was just absolutely outstanding. So for everybody, take up your glass, give it a swirl. Give it a sniff. If you can smell through that umbrella. And let's give it a taste.
This is something farmers never do. Farmers never sit down. Farmers never give themselves a compliment. Since I'm married to farming, I want to say thank you for forcing these people into doing this.
Well, I randomly picked one of the commenters as they sign on to Facebook. So the farthest distance person I've seen so far is Vicki Young from Ohio has joined us. So let's toast her.
Hey,
Thanks for joining us from Ohio. But also, I just real briefly, if you notice on the label of the Provencal, you'll see these poppies. So labels for us are kind of very important. They're certainly a way to stand out, to mark your wine, to really trademark your wine. And you'll notice the painting behind my head is also a painting of poppies. The label was kind of fun. So the old label, the Provencal from years ago, was an old woodblock print from Tony Bell, Dr. Becker's friend, an artist who's done a lot of our labels. Well, we introduced the idea of this poppy label several years ago, and it created quite a fervor between Dr. Becker and Bunny Becker. The reason behind the poppies, we planted poppies out by the vineyard. So when you guys come out to do a tasting or to enjoy a glass of wine, you can sit down right now. They're in bloom. And unfortunately, we don't have anybody coming out. But in the spring each year, the poppies are in bloom, and we like to introduce the new Provencal at the same time. Hence the poppy label. So, and it was finally Bunny Becker. After all the back and forth, she finally looked over at Dr. Becker and went, "Richard, we're putting this label on the bottle." That next year, sales of that bottle went through the roof. It was just kind of funny. But I also think it was the fruit as well. Anyway.
I think I just wanted to follow up on Anthony's point, because I think 2017 and 2018 were incredible harvest years for us for the reasons that Anthony pointed out. You guys had the big high pressure out over the High Plains, and that was actually the first year that we were able to bottle some of your varietals as individual varietals. We've bottled a Carignan and a Counoise from your grapes, and you would never see that done. But their extraction and their fruit and expression in the barrel was unbelievable. And then 2018 to follow up, yes, was not as much of a harvest, but the fruit concentration in the grapes and the extraction was incredible. Just two years back to back that were unreal. I also have to say that I almost never drink wine out of a straw, but it's something my father taught me to do early on, so I appreciate that.
Jesus. You guys with the straws. So I want you guys to give it another sip. As a winemaker, I kind of want to go through what's in this wine, what I'm perceiving. Now, if you don't smell what I'm describing, do not worry. This is a lot of times the scents that we're picking up are things that we're most familiar with. It's a very subjective, objective, very personal, subjective. I got it right. I may be a glass ahead of everybody by now. Anyway, just pick it up, give it a sip. Yeah. The one thing that I really enjoy about the Provencal is the herbaceousness. So I get a lot of almost like dried herbs, cooking herbs in it on the edge of the fruit. So to me, this wine is a wonderful pairing with things like roasted chicken. It does great with barbecue. I know I mentioned barbecue a couple of days ago about with that other wine. I'm a little barbecue obsessed. Forgive me for that. But the one thing that it does do very well with is chocolate cake. And so it's a little outside of the box. But the herbaceousness in this wine, but I also get a deep red fruit. Joe, since you are really familiar with the way I tend to go off on the rails, but could you bring us back in?
So I love the Provencal. I love our rosé program, and I think that it pairs well with food, and it's a great aperitif wine. I think it's absolutely wonderful on a hot Texas day. I think that the Provencal also has some very nice strawberry notes. It is a fairly classic Rhone blend of Cunoise and Mourvedre and Carignan. And I think the acid is just so well integrated. It's just a very lovely, full-bodied wine. As you'd say, John, it's very rich and creamy on the mid palate. That's just something I love about it.
So back to Farmhouse. So we've talked about those. So how many acres total do you all grow as far as vineyards?
So 112.
112 acres?
Yes, sir.
And how many of those, basically, how many tons? About 5 to 6 tons per acre average?
I would say our goal is to kind of average 5 tons across the board, with some varieties being under that and some being over that. But that's kind of a good general goal that we try to shoot for year in and year out for the total vineyard.
All right, and one last question. I'm sorry to keep harping on this, but I hope everybody's finding this interesting. The challenges, unique challenges to growing the grapes on the high plains. Now, you had mentioned the freezing weather and the hail. What other challenges do you all face that maybe they don't face necessarily on the West Coast?
Something that I like to point out always is nobody ever follows up when they're talking about fruit that comes out of other regions such as Napa or Washington State, Willamette Valley, or Walla Walla. Is they don't talk about the haboobs, right, that they have. Every growing region in the world has a pest pressure. They have a pressure, be it a pest or weather, right?
Right.
So when we're speaking to media, I like to point out that we have every pressure or every plague in the Bible. We don't just have one, we have every single one. But what makes the growers here more than unique, what makes them exceptional, every grower, not just our family, every grower, is that they have conquered row crops. They've conquered cotton, they've conquered peanuts. And against every single plague in the Bible, they are still turning out premium fruit, right?
Right.
So award-winning fruit, double golds, not just in national or international, but when you guys have gone to Lyon, France.
Right.
To Lyon, France. Right. You've done double gold with the Provencal in San Francisco. You guys were the very first to make dry rosé before it ever hit Texas, before Texas started a craze with it. Provencal did it.
Well, so, and you're right. And I'm sorry to talk over you, Katie Jane. I apologize.
No, yeah, that's the answer to that question is truly, you can talk about the challenges all day long, but the one challenge is that we have every challenge and we're still turning out premium fruit.
Mm-hmm. You are indeed. All of our growers up there are producing some outstanding fruit. The rosé, though, when you mentioned the craze of the rosé, and so everybody knows, if you do not have this rosé with you and you would like to try it, one, it is readily available throughout the state of Texas at your favorite retailer. But two, it is also important to know that it's a dry rosé. This is not a sweet wine. This is a light-bodied wine made for warm weather drinking. As a red wine fan, as a red wine maker and a white wine maker, rosé to me is this unique blend of using red grapes and making the grape as if we were making a white wine. So that's what's unique about rosé production, is that we bring those red grapes in, and for red wine, we would normally destem them, take them off the rachises, and put the whole berry in the tank to ferment. Well, white wine, we immediately take the fruit, put it in a press off the juice, settle it, then ferment it. So with the rosé, we take the red fruit, press it like a white wine, settle it like a white wine. It's very pink, light pink to a gradient red, and then we ferment it that way, very cool. The other thing, the reason our Provencal is a little deeper than a traditional Salomon pink is that I also do another process called saignée. It simply means to bleed. What we do is we take those red grapes into the tank like we're making a red wine, and then over the first 48 to 72 hours, we bleed a little juice out of that tank and put it into a rosé tank to ferment. So we get these various gradients of red to pink, and that also gives us some of the stronger fruit quality in the back. Now we will keep this in an extraordinarily cool ferment at 55 degrees Fahrenheit, which is on the cusp of actually making the yeast go dormant. So we just barely keep it alive, keep it going very slow, very cool, and it takes us a long time. It'll take several months to make this wine. A traditional direct-to-press rosé done in barrel and turn around 3 months later, we do part of that, and we do a variant on that. And that's simply me wanting to complicate everybody's life at the winery needlessly, I think, sometimes.
I think that the rosé program, to me, speaks a lot to kind of our evolution and the evolution in the Texas wine industry. My father may have mentioned the other night that he befriended Robert Mondavi early on, and who told him cut no corners. The other advice when we first started our winery was don't quit your day job in the Texas wine industry. And so when we first started, we made 1,500 cases, and the story's true. My father was looking at it. My mother came up and said, I'm sure you're proud of it, but now you've got to sell all the wine. But the point that we went from a point in time in which we were doing what we could to grow mostly Bordeaux varietals, like Cab and Chardonnay, and started growing Viognier. And over time, what's been amazing is the grape growing quality in Texas has become amazing, as Katie Jane alluded to. That we can grow these amazing Rhone varietals out in West Texas. That our Viognier won a silver medal in Lyon, France, I think in 2015. But the gold medal was won by another Texas winery, and the bronze medal was won by another Texas winery. And so I think it's fascinating too that the palate for tasting wine in Texas has evolved. That we can make these wines that people enjoy, and that we can make these varietals, that we have this quality of grape growing, and we have the quality of winemaking in our state. I think it's really come a long way.
Well, we're at a great point too that I want to encourage our followers to start sending us your questions and that we can answer for you. We'd be delighted to take some. It's a rare opportunity that we get to sit down both with the owner, Joe, and with the growers from the farmhouse. It's an opportunity for everybody to ask a few questions. We will try to get to a few. Ask your questions, even if we don't get to them. I will do a Q&A after this broadcast, and we will post it up on Facebook and our YouTube page. Now, before we close,
on the
I'm
side.
sorry?
I was trying to read them on the side, but I'm sitting far away on the line.
So one of the things that I wanted to mention too, the term Provence, the Provencal, where did that come from? So Joe, could you speak to that? It's a family.
Sure.
Affair, pretty much.
Yeah, sure. So when we first started our winery, we started making rosé. We were greatly inspired by the Southern Rhone rosés, particularly from Bandol. And so, Provence is the primary southern region of France, and so we wanted to have a Bandol Rhone inspired rosé, consisting of a lot of the Rhone reds, Mourvèdre, Grenache, sometimes Syrah, and it's nice now we have the ability of Counoise and Carignan. If I could do one more thing too while I'm talking, and I wanted to say happy birthday to somebody, if we could just raise our glass to a Lydia McAfee. Happy birthday out there. We appreciate your watching this and hope you're having a wonderful birthday.
I'll drink to that. That's a good time to drink too. Okay, so I got a couple of questions here.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm very clumsy with my pages here. One of the questions we got is how long will this wine last in bottle? Like, can you lay it down? Traditionally, yes, for a short period of time. Actually, though, we've found that our Provencal probably lasts 3 or 4 years in the bottle. I was drinking a 2015 that was still pretty tasty. It had reached its lifespan. Now, every wine, every varietal has a unique time depending on how it's made, how it's cultured, how long it will last in the bottle, and if it's properly stored. The biggest thing I can tell you about storing your wine is store it in a consistently temperatured area. It doesn't have to be super cool, but fluctuating temperatures kill wine fast. Like if it's, in December, it's 55 degrees in the closet, and the closet's on the south side of the house. And in the summer, that closet goes up to 65, 70 degrees. Doing that year round, that's going to kill the lifespan of any wine. If you can keep it in a consistently temperatured area, it will last a lot longer. Joe, another question we had was what to pair with. What's your favorite pairing?
Actually, tonight I've got a wonderful. It's marinating right now. I'm going to barbecue some pork with a little bit of barbecue, kind of a lighter barbecue sauce. I think it's going to go very well with that. So things like that.
More like a glaze instead of a heavy sauce.
Exactly right.
Right. Now, here's a big question. Tennessee or Texas for your sauce? Do you like sweet or do you like vinegar? So we did lose the Farmhouse feed. I'm sorry, guys. They are from West Texas, and apparently their feed dropped suddenly. So I apologize. We weren't able to say goodbye to them. But please, if you have some questions for them, please send them in. Like I said, we're going to do a Q&A right after this broadcast on there. So the other thing I want to mention too for everybody is the continuation of this series for next week. So Can I answer one question first?
Yes.
Yeah.
Somebody asked the difference between the Rosé, the Jolie, the Provencal, and the Saignée.
So I guess I'm not supposed to say just label. No, no, there is a distinct difference. Yeah, I get that. That actually is a very common question at the winery too, because the Provencal we do not sell at the winery. We only sell out in distribution to wine shops and grocery stores. And that wine is specifically made more with the Rhone varietals, hence the name Provencal. So you'll find a greater portion of Mourvèdre, Grenache, Syrah, a little bit of Counoise, and so Carignan. The Jolie is kind of our answer, our rosé answer to the Tempranillo program. We initially started the Jolie off with a majority of Tempranillo rosé, kind of our Iberian rosé, if you will. Now, the Jolie does have a little bit of Rhone varietals in there. It also has just a smidge of some of the heavier Bordeaux, like a Merlot, a Saignée Merlot. The Saignée is kind of a cool story. Our first Saignée vintage, which was 3 vintages ago, I literally was collecting the Saignée off of the red tanks to increase the concentration of the red grapes. So one of the things I like as a winemaker is to see a greater skin to juice ratio when I'm fermenting the red grapes. One of the tricks of the trade, if you will, is to take just a small portion of that juice within the first 12 hours that you put those grapes in, take that juice out of there, because everything you want in a red wine comes from the red skin, the skin of the grape. It does not come from the juice, does not come from the pulp. All of those flavors, all of that color comes from the very thin layer of skin on that grape. So a greater skin to juice ratio gives a more concentrated, more red wine. Well, we were putting that Saignée that juice away in one tank. And Rachel, our assistant winemaker, came up to me one day. She goes, you know that Saunier that you didn't want to do anything with? I'm like, yeah. And she said, it's fermenting now. You're making wine. So we made this wine, and I was like, okay, we've deliberately made a pressed rosé program that year. Then we had this Saunier juice that we really had no idea for. Your dad, Doc, came in one Saturday, and he said, let's taste this tank. And I'm like, oh, that's just Saunier tank. That's really not anything on pretty tasty. He goes, I think we should bottle this. And I was just like, that's great. The one tank I really kind of didn't pay that much attention to turns out to be my best work. So it actually turned out very well. So we just named it Saunier, which was kind of fun. So next week, Friday, of course, this Friday, we will be doing another host for the third bottle on this pack up, which I believe is the Tempranillo. So we'll be doing that this Friday at 5:30. Then watch your emails. We've already sent out the first batch of emails here about the next week's 3-bottle tasting. If you'd like to get in on that, please order. Tomorrow is Thursday, so you want to have that order in by Thursday if you can, so that we have a hope of getting you the wine on time. The other thing is the next continuation tasting I'm sorry, I'm reading off of this. Will be Monday, Wednesday, Friday next week again. And as Joe mentioned, Lydia McPhee's birthday. So again, Lydia, happy birthday. We were glad that you joined us tonight. And again, if you have any other questions, please ask them, and I'll do a Q&A, and we'll post that.
For those of you showing up late, I'm not crazy. I don't regularly drink wine from a straw, but it was a poor attempt at humor, but it was something my kids made for me today that I had to share. So I appreciate everybody being here, and happy birthday.
Cheers to everybody. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on Friday. We wish you good health and great wine.